What's the most frisky thing you've experienced in a professional situation? Story 1. I had a manager in a call center in 1999 and 2000. She would sometimes have one-on-one meetings with employees in her office. During a meeting with me, she was wearing a short dress and skirt, uncrossed her legs in a way where I could see she wasn't wearing underwear and had a landing strip. I'm pretty sure she noticed that I noticed, but I don't think she was doing it on purpose. Story 2. I worked in a photo lab at a Meyer right out of high school. This was just a couple years before digital cameras killed film, so I still dealt with people bringing in disposables and rolls of film to develop. 95% of the stuff that I saw was kids' birthday parties and vacation shots. The rest, though, was some frisky stuff. One woman in her mid-40s that apparently liked to party with her friends had a thing about resting her front in people's faces. Another guy dropped off a disposable camera for an hour of development. I ran it through, and the entire roll was a woman who was drop-dead gorgeous, just posing without clothes on the bed. Well, when he returned to pick up the pictures, she was with him. And that was a very awkward moment of bringing them up, and she couldn't look me in the eyes. Had another guy drop off a camera who was a real class act, with photos of his girlfriend or wife and collection of guns. One other story I have is about a couple that brought in a roll of film. I ran it through the process, and most of the images were innocuous, but the final few were probably a little saucy. I say probably because the images were so dark I couldn't make out much more than a silhouette. It was likely the wife modeling off some lingerie. I never printed the pictures though, since they were almost all black. They picked them up and returned a short time later with my manager and store director in tow, demanding that I be fired for stealing those last few shots. My explanation didn't satisfy them, so I was forced to put their film back in the machine and show exactly how the shots were and why they weren't printed. After that, they got real sheepish and muttered an apology before quickly leaving. That peek into people's lives dried up when digital went mainstream, though. It is probably a good thing that the film age died because I was getting a little bit of a creepy vibes from this guy who worked at the camera shop. This is why the Polaroid was, and still is, so popular. You get to have your dirty pictures instantly without having to wait for some guy to handle all your frisky pictures. Although, it probably is a little bit of a thrill for that couple that came in to get their photos, knowing that the staff have seen them and probably thinking about them for the rest of the day. Story 3. Went into work because monitoring software on a server was sending out alerts. And when I got there, a guy was in the break room cleaning a woman's shoe in the sink. He was super startled when I walked in and began some weird story about the shoe smelling bad and it distracting him, so he decided to just grab it and wash it. I was like, well, okay, then good corporate citizen. A few weeks later, somebody walked in on him doing it with a woman's shoe. Apparently, it was normal for female employees to occasionally leave a pair of shoes at the office. This was in Chicago, and you either left shoes there or carried them with you on your commute so that you could wear boots in the slush. At his exit interview, he made a point of saying that he always washed the shoes afterwards, as if that somehow made it okay. They let him resign in lieu of calling the cops on him, although I've often wondered what the charges would be. Is this even a crime? The day he left, a memo went around explaining what had happened and authorizing full compensation for replacement of any shoes that had ever been left overnight. Story 4. I worked at a honey-baked ham store right out of high school. Loved that job. But I remember one day during the summer when a van pulled up right by our side door entrance and a kid, around 10 years old, popped out of the van, ran into our store, and beelined into the restroom. It was a weekday afternoon and things were slow, so we didn't mind that they weren't customers and were just there to use our restroom. So a few minutes later, the kid runs out of the store and we don't think anything about it. A few hours later, the lady that's on that shift with me is cleaning the sales floor and restrooms for the end of the day, and I'm in the back production room cleaning up and doing dishes. Suddenly, I hear her screaming my name and yelling for me to hurry over to her. Lo and behold, she's at the men's restroom holding the door open with a look of utter disgust on her face. I walk up to her expecting that the kid had left a floater or something, but no, it was so much worse. There was poop everywhere. That brat had smeared his crap along almost every surface imaginable in the restroom. The mirror, the grab bars, the toilet seat, the paper towel dispenser, the walls. I spent the next 2 hours cleaning the surfaces as well as I could, even had to throw away the towels we used for cleaning the kitchen. Normally, we just get them laundered by a service. And I used the disinfectant we use in the kitchen on everything I could see in that restroom. Still makes my skin crawl thinking of that day, and it's probably the reason behind my irrational hatred of all children. I'm not sure that you can call it an irrational hatred of children when the children pull this kind of crap, literally. Seems pretty rational to me to dislike a little human who needs an exorcism. I can get having to run to the bathroom in an emergency, but what the heck is the motivation to then smear it all over the place? Because it doesn't just end up like that. So that kid had to do that on purpose. Was he double dog dared or something? I hope this kid rubbed his eyes or something after this and gave himself pink eye. He totally deserves it. Story 5. A very long time ago, I worked as a night shift clerk at a hotel. There was a lot of generic late-night hotel stuff, people trying to do it in the lobby restroom, people trying to do it in the pool, people trying to bribe me to open the pool at 3 a.m. so they can do it in there, and that's all fairly run-of-the-mill and boring. This is slightly less run-of-the-mill, I guess. We had this weird guest show up who people said was a kingpin or a major crime boss or something like that. He didn't look like one, just a regular-looking dude in his late 40s, driving a really nice SUV. He was a bit cocky, but in a harmless way. I didn't see him do anything outrageously criminal, and no shady characters showed up. But he rented the most expensive suite and paid for everything in cash, so there's that. He stayed for about a month. The crazy part, one night he woke up and ordered a service. Not a cheap kind either, but one from those semi-legit escort agencies. This gorgeous young blonde in a tiny dress and heels showed up, and whatever few people in the lobby were at that hour, like 1 a.m. or something, were watching her every move as she went up to his suite in one of our glass elevators. She was smoking hot, is what I'm saying. Whatever, I figured hopefully she's as good in the sack as she looks and gives the guy a good time. He tipped very generously and for pretty much anything, so despite his overall weirdness, he was well liked by staff. Fast forward maybe 2 hours. The smoking hot blonde comes down in the glass elevator, her heels in one hand and her dress in the other. No panties either. She's as high as a kite. At this point, most everyone in the hotel is asleep, so the lobby is empty, and it's just me, the security guard, the phone operator in the back, and the second night shift clerk, but he's on break in the staff area. Anyway, she comes over to the front desk and tries to make small talk with me. The view is nice, but this isn't an adult film, so I asked the security guard to get a blanket and gently corral her while I call a cab and get her out of my lobby before she makes a mess. He gets after her, but she would have none of it, so she drops her heels and dress and bolts. I wish there was some Benny Hill music playing over the PA, because for about 10 minutes, we have a large man with a blanket chasing after a giggling and squealing naked girl all over a large hotel lobby. He finally caught up with her and restrained her, but somehow she managed to undo his pants and get his friend out in the process. A true professional, this lady. So now we have a large man with his friend out and a clothesless girl that is alternating between trying to wiggle out of a blanket and grab the said large man's friend. And he can't put it away because if he lets her go, she'll probably bolt again. Eventually, she calms down a bit and he tells her that a cab is coming. She's okay with that, but still wouldn't dress or stop acting squirrely, so he keeps her gently restrained. Then the cab shows up, we stuffed her and her dress and sent her off, and my guard was finally able to zip up his pants. Minus one hotel blanket, but not our problem anymore. My life's been pretty boring since, so I think the erotic Benny Hill chase would have to be the most crazy thing I've seen in a professional setting. An outstanding story, and well told by this hotel clerk. I think we can all picture just how ridiculous and hilarious it would be to watch this situation unfold. I would have loved to just be sitting in the lobby with a book and then just putting the book down to be entertained by the situation. I'm glad they were able to safely corral this woman and get her to safety relatively quickly, because this was also headed to a police call, and it would likely only make things worse. In the comments, what other crazy and bizarre things have you witnessed while staying at a hotel? Story 6. I was the spot kid at a car dealership when I was 18. Moved cars around on the lot. When we got to a spot, I'd clean it. A spot was the term for when one of these salesmen sold a car. I'd also clean up trade-ins and some other vehicles when I got a chance. We took in one of those big conversion vans on a trade. It was left in the back lot. On most slow nights, I'd grab one of those trades that was going to go back out onto the lot and clean it. Now, I was putting off cleaning this van for a while. It's a big van and it would take hours. So when I finally decide to clean it, I grab the keys and head to the back of the lot. I open the door and there's two of the male salesmen going at it on the pull-out bed, while the female sales manager watched from one of the swiveling captain's chairs. They were not sober. I shut the door and slowly backed away. Never did clean that van. The service manager asked why I hadn't already and told him that, let's just say, Jan said that I didn't have to and to ask her. A few days later, it gets loaded up and sent to auction. Nothing was mentioned for a few days about what I saw, but it was weird in the sales office when I was around. Story 7. Here goes. Worked in IT my whole life. About 12 years ago, the director at the place I work had a laptop that had failed. This was, I think, Windows Media Center Edition days. Anyways, I get it working again, and he asked me to copy everything from my docs folder to a portable hard drive, as he was going to give the laptop to his son. Well, after I get it working, I fire it up and go to my docs and notice that there isn't enough room on the drive to copy everything. So I click my pictures, and thumbnails flood the screen. Some of the craziest bondage pics I've ever seen. He was taking them, and I only knew this due to a few where there was a mirror. Our HR director from another state was in one of them, very clearly in the hotel that we used while traveling to that state. She was tied up, bound, and had Tata clamps on attached to various pieces of furniture. It was crazy. This dude had pics of like 50 different women in there, some from work. So I lend him my own portable drive and copy over things like he asked. He ended up resigning later as my PC tech went to help him with the PC problem, and the director got up to get a snack. And as soon as my tech sat down, an instant message appeared with a middle-aged woman showing her tatas with some clothespins on them and a message that said, "What do you think?" That wasn't even why he got fired though. Completely different reasons, and it was like 2 years later. It was a deal where he had scammed the company for a ton of money. So the president calls me up and tells me to look through his emails as they are missing items, money, all kinds of stuff, and they want me to try to filter through it. The very first email was from his current girlfriend begging him to not break up with her, that she was starting to use the clamps on her and getting used to it, and that she'd be a good girl and start waking him up with pleasure like he had asked. This dude was an overweight, ugly guy, and I have no idea how he got all these chicks, but man. My second story goes to my first place of employment, so we are back further now. Get a call that nothing is printing, and turns out the file and print server is out of space. This is a company that is based out of Japan. So run tree size and discover that one user's private drive has a ton load of Japanese characters folders that are large. So I open the first one, and it's all pictures of the same Japanese girl. Next folder, different girl, etc. This guy had downloaded something like 20 gigabytes of it and taken time to label and sort it very detailed into separate folders. This was impressive because I think at the time he had like a 128K internet connection. He had to have been dedicated. Because he was from corporate, they literally called a meeting with me, him, and the big boss. Now he comes in, they have me explain the problem and that we need to make him delete them now so that we have space for print jobs. He instead asks if he can bring in his CD burner and copy them off. They let him and asked me to find other stuff to delete so the business can function. I still can't believe it. Man, it seems like the corporate world that this guy works in is either really stressful or really boring. Either way, it seems the most exciting thing to do is to put clamps on yourself and to take lots of pictures. Whatever you need to get through the stress of your modern office, I suppose. No judgment here. What is really surprising is how much people are getting away with this stuff. The second guy apparently was very important, and he didn't really even seem fazed that people knew about his little picture collection. Story 7. When I was 16, I was working at McDonald's. I got put on a Saturday morning shift which started at 5 a.m. I couldn't sleep and ended up arriving at work that morning at about 4:25. I noticed the manager's car and one of my coworkers' car was already there, so I figured I'd just head in and sit around in the break room until 5. Walked in and heard them in the bathroom going at it. Manager was a woman about 35 and the other employee was a guy about 18. I just went back to my car and pretended I never knew about it. About a month later, I asked for a Saturday off for homecoming, and she said no, so I casually said, "I'm going to take it off anyways, or else I'll let Todd, the store manager, know about you and Bill." She gave me the day off. Story 8. I delivered pizza for Papa John's for somewhere short of a year. I arrived at an apartment where a woman greeted me through a small crack in the door. "Hey, do you mind coming inside? We're nudists." So I fashion my car keys into brass knuckles like Jesse Pinkman, and I decide I cannot miss out on an opportunity like this. I walk inside to find an extremely fit and completely undressed woman around her 40s. She informs me her boyfriend is bringing me my tip. A short, fat man wearing shorts, presented me a $5 bill. As I thank my customers and start for the door, the woman grabs me. "Don't forget your extra tip." She then proceeds to shake her breasts in my face with my nose comfortably nestled deep within her cleavage. Greatest story I've dealt with. If this story is true, round of applause for that guy. I'm sure delivering pizza isn't a very glamorous job and obviously does not pay well, so anything a delivery driver can do to get the job more exciting and memorable the better. I am glad that he got a little extra tip and such a fun memory that he can fondly think upon in the future. I wonder what the rules of a nudist are though, that they can't even answer the door while wearing clothes? Is there like a nudist regulatory body that will report them and pull their nudist license or something? Fascinating. Story 9. Not me, but one of my buddies. He's a personal trainer and in between sessions, he'd have some downtime. Anyway, His gym would often have interns, and it was like shooting fish in a barrel. He went into a back office and did it. And from what I'm told, it was pretty freak. Got called into the head manager's office the next day with the girl and was informed that the office was wired for video and sound. They played the whole thing in front of him and her. The worst part is when they were picking which desk to do their business on, they chose the HR manager because they both hated her and clearly verbalized this in the video. He got fired that day. Story 10. I used to work in a car dealership. My boss was an older ex-prison guard. He was kind of a tool, but it all came to a head when he hired a 19-year-old girl to be a saleswoman. I have no problem with this and actually prefer a workplace with an even gender distribution. However, listen to the rest of the story. So he put her at a desk right across from him and was very hands-on in her training. Normally, he let the other manager train new salespeople, but he showed her how to do everything. About a week into her being there, I went outside for a smoke, and she was behind the building crying. I asked her what was wrong, and she said that he had taken her on a demo ride in one of the new cars and told her that she could get ahead if she would give him some pleasure. We didn't have an HR department, so I took her to the finance manager, who was a really kind and caring lady. She then took it up with the owner. The owner was unwilling to do anything about it and wanted to sweep it all under the rug. When we found out about it myself, the girl and the finance manager all quit on the same day, and the girl filed a lawsuit. Story 11. When I was 16 and unemployed and dropped out of college, I had to attend a course from the Department of Work and Pensions designed to help create CVs and get into work, etc. Within 10 minutes of arriving, one of the women supposed to be helping the group took me, just me, into an empty room and locked the door behind her, which I found odd. She then walked up to me quite slowly and grabbed my little wooden necklace thing and got really close to me, looking at my lips and into my eyes and saying, "Oh wow, I really like this. Where did you get it?" I can't really remember what I said, but we were literally about 10 centimeters away from each other's faces. My heart was pounding thinking about what was going to happen when the door got knocked on and she had to go over and unlock it. The woman asked why the door was locked, and the two of them stepped outside. I actually just left immediately and never looked back. She was pretty hot, too. Also, she must have been at least double my age, maybe 35 or so. Every time I recount the story, I get reactions of laughter or, "Oh man, should have sealed the deal." I can't help but wonder what the reactions would be if I was a female and the person coming on to me was a male, but that's an aside. The main point is I should have just did it. What the heck is going on in this story? I'm a little confused first off, because isn't 16 a little young for someone to already be dropping out of college? Aren't most people starting college at like 18 or 19? I know there are exceptions to this, but seems a little odd. And another thing, I'm pretty sure that this situation is borderline criminal. Just the age difference between those two alone is pretty alarming, and that woman is exhibiting some predatory behavior. 100% chance that if it was a 16-year-old girl and a middle-aged man, that dude would be sitting in prison as we speak. I hope some consequences come to the female here, because this whole story is just not okay.